Good afternoon. Welcome to the Commission of Inquiry into the Cccl quarry explosion of 7th December 2023. This is our afternoon session and we have two witnesses here this afternoon. Mr. Plaus, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam.
My name is Justice Nicola Sharp-Piri. I am the chairperson of the Commission. I have Mr. Ruku.
My name is Ruku, a member of the Commission.
I am Dora Zat.
Our secretary is Samuel Cccl. Samuel, before he administers the oath, I will just mention a few house rules which apply to everyone. Please could we switch off our cell phones or any other mobile devices. Try and keep movement in and out of the room to the minimum. If we can refrain from interrupting the witness or any of the commissioners. Please, no audio or video recordings other than what has been authorized by the Commission. And everyone should conduct themselves with dignity and respect, and the commissioners will also treat every witness that's appearing before us with fairness. Okay, I would like to ask our secretary now to administer the oath.
Very good. I solemnly and sincerely affirm that the evidence
I shall give to this Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please could you state your full names for the record?
Yes, my name is David McManaway Plaus. I'm a resident of Seychelles.
How do you spell your middle name?
Big M-A-M-A-C,
Mac, yes.
and then Big M again, M-A-N-A-W-A-Y. Lots of A's.
Mr. Plaus, you have come here independently. Could you just confirm that you have done so voluntarily?
Yes, completely. I have a slightly altruistic motive to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Sure. And I also would like to remind you that you're not obliged to answer anything that you feel might incriminate you.
Very good, Madam.
Okay. And what is your occupation?
I'm semi-retired now. I've been a professional pilot and a professional commercial diver. Madam, I wonder, before we get into the complicated technical issues, I have a small request of the Commission. I'd like the Commission respectfully to allow me just 2 minutes of a slightly tangential issue. I hope you will be able to bear with me for that.
Sure. If we just put your details onto the record, and then you would like to speak before questioning?
Well, I'd just like to
say a few things. So
it's a serious matter, but I feel I've got a human point to make.
Sure. We will allow you. Just let's put your details on the record. You said you are semi-retired and a commercial diver.
Yes.
And are you currently working at the moment?
I do occasional part-time work. I'm not currently doing any blasting work, but I do have a current blasting license.
Sure. Before we start with the questions, you would like to say something?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you for your kindness. I noticed in a previous tribunal that one of the witnesses was having some difficulties with being accused of something, and I was thinking that my testimony might make me liable before the event of this explosion. And so I was going to ask the Commission if I might communicate in the Matabele language so that I would not have to say anything. But then I decided that it would be better for the transparency and scene of justice to talk in English, so I've decided to talk in English. Thank you.
So you're happy to speak in English?
Oh, absolutely. No, it was just, trying to dive out of the problem, and I was very upset about that previous event.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Plaus, you were saying earlier that you do occasional part-time work. And what work is that?
I do commercial diving work. I do work for SAPEC and the various other larger companies around. And a few years back, before the law changed, I was doing commercial flying. I was able to, because Seychelles is a small country, I was able to balance both jobs.
And are you a licensed blaster?
Yes, I have my current license here. I've been a licensed blaster for more than 5 decades. And then I got my first license in the late 70s in Seychelles. And the reason I have a current one, although we're not doing any work, is that the EU were possibly going to do an underwater blasting course, which I was going to conduct for them. And that's why I've kept my license current.
And what are your qualifications?
I'm an A-class commercial diver, and I'm registered as a underwater explosives diver.
Underwater explosive diver.
Yes. It's a slightly different technique to doing it on land, obviously.
Okay, and where are those qualifications from?
I did my initial course in the UK, and then they were just rubber stamped here.
And you said you have a current, you've had for the last 5 decades had a licensed, you're licensed as a blaster,
Yes,
and you have a current one.
I do. It's here if you
And
wish to.
you will avail a copy to the Commission.
Certainly.
Sure. Before the end of this session, we will take a copy from you.
That's fine.
And we will mark that. What is that? I? Exhibit I? So, Mr. Plaus, in the nature of your work, do you use explosives?
Not of late. That's something I'd like to clarify. I was basically operating with the old magazine at Cccl. I haven't had much to do with them for the last 5 years, so in a sense you might think that it's irrelevant, but I want to tell the Commission that there's been a continual, I could say, history of misunderstanding and mismanagement of the operation of the magazine. And I think this contributed to the accident. I'll explain that in full in a minute.
Yes, perhaps I'll allow you to explain, and then I will ask questions following that.
Okay, so basically it seemed that there were lack of safety protocols in the magazine. The biggest one that I had continual problems with since the late 70s was that they were always storing the detonators in with the main charges. This is an absolute no-go area. And I can only tell you, when I took my supplies, I would always make sure the detonators were physically separated from the main charges. And this was not something that happened inside the magazine when I was present at the magazine. I have to stress, I haven't been present there for about 5 years, but since there's been a history of 50 years of mismanagement on this, I think it's reasonable to suspect that that continued, and also the circumstances of this explosion also indicate to me how this explosion occurred. The other problem we have is that explosives are shelf life limited, and they deteriorate, and they also deteriorate more in a hot and humid place, and this is where we are. I'm very concerned that the current storage of the explosives is in an air-conditioned situation with working air conditioners, because the time factor is very relevant, and it's extremely hard if there's an expiry date but it's being exposed to high temperatures and humidity. It's very hard to tell the exact state of the detonators. I don't actually think people understand how sensitive the detonators are. They are subject to friction, heat, and shock, and the latter, the shock, is a very important factor in this accident, I feel. According to the literature, if you drop a detonator from half a meter, it can actually self-ignite. And certainly if they've been deteriorating for some time, this can occur. The other problem we had in the magazine, and I think this can be verified by the escort police in due course, is that the gelignite that was used for civilian blasting could sweat, and the explosive material would actually come out of the charge and become very unstable. So we now have a situation developing that you have unstable main charge and unstable detonators. Sometimes the smell, the aroma was so bad that the magazine manager, he used to come at about 8 in the morning when all the independent blasters used to come to get their explosives. It was so bad in that container that instead of sitting inside and monitoring us, he actually sat outside and asked us to go in and get our stuff and then bring it all out so he could register what we were taking. So you have a very lethal combination going on here. I remember every time a magazine manager changed, I'd go and have this discussion and say, hey, listen, don't you think we should be moving the debts away from the main charges? And they say, oh no, you worry too much, Captain. Well, circumstances, it might have taken 50 years, but I think I was worrying the right amount. And I can put a circumstance to you where this could have occurred. According to what I understand, the door was locked on the container, and there was a noise of what they considered to be gunshots. I think earlier I was asked if it could be some sort of sabotage issue. I honestly hardly think somebody that was going to cause an explosion would be standing outside the container discharging a pistol. The sound that the detonator makes is exactly like a gunshot. And I think what may have happened, possibly, I'm completely conjecturing here, possibly a rat was inside this container and the debts used to be up on a high shelf. Maybe this box of slightly unstable debts got knocked down and discharged, and this bang, bang, bang that was heard was obviously the detonators going off. Maybe some of them flew over towards this rather suspect explosive. Once again, I'm supposing, I wasn't obviously present. Once the main charges started, then you could see a circumstance developing where there was going to be a huge explosion. The other thing I'd like to point out is there was a military-grade explosive in there. It's called PETN. It's used for the blasting cable. I've seen 50 or 60 rolls of this stuff in there. And this is what they call a high-velocity explosive. And it has a very strong, what they call brisant effect, a shattering effect. And if one of the detonators went near this, or the suspect gelignite that I was telling you about earlier, a detonator fell near that, if these blasting cables rolls went off, then one of the things that surprised everybody was the force of that explosion. And if the container was closed up, you can imagine the whole thing was proceeding, blasting away in there until it reached a completely critical point where the whole contents of the container just went. And that would explain why the other containers disappeared as well. The amount of, I was shocked to see that crater. The amount of force that must have been generated in there is quite staggering. And I think one of the things that could have got this going was the blasting cable, which is a very high, powerful cable. So, as I say, this lack of interest in safety has been going on for at least 50 years. I don't know about the last 5, but I suspect very strongly that it did continue. I got a clue about this once I tackled the magazine manager, and he said, this is about 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, he said to me, Dave, I went to the manager and they told me to get rid of this stuff, like distribute it. And they were always very happy to see me because for underwater blasting we use about 20 times as much volume of blasting. So the old stuff would be taken. I could use that quite effectively. The problem was, it's just like yogurt in a shop. If you know, the grocer tries to keep the yogurt and sell it to you to save money, and what this magazine manager was told, the management in the office, I think it was a female lady at the time, said, just continue to distribute this because the supply is not coming in the near future, so we won't have stock. So there was a supply problem and a profit problem, and this is why this substandard material wasn't destroyed. When I first came here in the late 70s with PWD, we used to actually go with them up to, so there was a jail somewhere not far away. The open space was used to burn off this detrimental explosive. But after some years, this stopped. So I think there was a culture of keeping the substandard explosive so it could be sold, basically. And this was very unfortunate.
Okay. Are you done with
Yes, thank you.
You're saying?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'll just take you a little bit back so we can just lay some foundation. So you said you were a licensed blaster, and
Yes.
you would visit CCCL premises,
Yes,
and you would purchase explosives from them.
exactly.
Okay, that's what I understood. And your last point was that at times you even purchased the expired, should I use the word expired?
Yes,
or
yes, you may.
expired explosives?
Yes, it was, you know, I got to understand when it was really bad not to take it, but when it was kind of okay, we could use it underwater quite safely.
Okay. And how many times did you go to CCCL premises and over what period?
Well, it would have been over 45 years, and sometimes I'd go 3 times a week and sometimes not for 6 months.
So over a period of 45 years. Okay, and you don't need to answer this question, but I mean, looking at the Explosives Act, there's requirements to purchase explosives, you need a permit. To transport explosives, you need a permit. To store explosives, you need a permit. Correct?
Correct.
And what procedures were you using to purchase and transport them, etc.?
Purely, I could get access to the explosive through my issued license, the government license.
Sure.
After that, the transport and so on was entirely my problem.
And did anyone at CCCL ever ask you for your license when you were buying?
Yes, every time you had to present your license, and then the amount you took in detonators, blasting cable, and main charge explosives, this was all logged, because you might not use all of it, obviously. So there was a very strict table that you followed, and then let's say you've got 10 detonators and you use 5 of them. So then you would return 5, and then you would have that as a sort of credit to use the next time, if you see what I mean. It wasn't the you paid the first time, but then after that, if you still had credit in stock, you'd be just given that stock. It was on record. Those records were well maintained. As to the records for the age of the explosive, I never saw that.
Okay, and so when was the last time you went to the CCCL premises?
A difficult question, madam. I think it was probably 2019.
So about 5 years before the explosion?
Yes, exactly as I said.
4 or 5 years before.
This is why I needed to be careful with you, that what I'm telling you about the protocols and the...
Yes.
Yes. But the thing is, if it's been like that for 45 years, I very much doubt it changed.
Absolutely. But what I was trying to establish is, we know that CCCL had initially one container near the gate.
That's right.
Somewhere there. And then
Yes.
they subsequently moved to where the explosive site was now.
That's right.
And so when you were going there, did you ever go when they had the new containers?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But I understand from my colleagues that it was more or less more of the same.
The same condition. And when you last went there, who were you dealing with? So in 2019, they hadn't moved, they didn't have those, they were still using...
If that's the date, all I can tell you, whenever that
last date
original container was there, that's when I was there. I didn't go to the new one.
And who were you dealing with? Do you remember the names? Like, who was the magazine manager?
Not at all, because they change every 5 to 8 years. And sometimes people were on leave and so on. So I was not on a first-name basis with them.
Okay, and you did tell us the explosives that they were using. Maybe you can just repeat that? What are you aware that they were using?
Well, they had 2 types of detonator. One was a safety fuse detonator, and the other was an electrical detonator. The electrical detonators in particular were a sealed unit, so when they became Timex, they could get really very, very sensitive. Then there was the blasting cable, which is like a washing line, if you like. But it's...
And is that blasting cable what you referred to as PETN or something?
That's the content, that's the blasting content of it, yes.
Okay, and is that the same thing as Cortex? Cortex, is that?
Yes.
Okay. And so we know at the time, I believe, they might have had quite a bit of it in, like about 5 kilometers to or something.
Yes,
like
quite
that.
a lot. Yes.
Something to that effect.
Well, it would be all, and of course it wouldn't be stretched out, it would be
Yes.
all together. And yes, that's, as I explained to you earlier, it's an extremely powerful explosive. It's very stable, but it's dangerous.
Okay. And so, what was your concern about the cable? When you said it could have been a problem, what did you mean?
Well, the cable was the highest intensity explosive for the civilian use.
Sure.
And so if that was allowed to detonate in some way, the scenario I mentioned before, then that really would have intensified the explosive. It's twice, there's a thing called detonating velocity. And like, if I could give you a small example, like gunpowder would be having a velocity of perhaps 300 or 400 meters a second. This stuff's up around 6,000 or 7,000 meters a second. It's virtually instantaneous, and it's got a tremendous it creates a supersonic shock wave. This shock wave is very powerful. It can shatter rock, obviously. And once this was in that container, I think this explains the intensity of the thing. I think the initiation probably came from the detonators starting to go off for some reason. But then the intensity of it, once this blasting cable ignited, then that was it.
You spoke about the substandard explosives
Yes.
that were still being sold, right?
It went on for decades. You know, it was normal.
Okay.
There's another reason. Sometimes, I think yesterday, one of the witnesses was talking about the dangerous cargo DG containers coming in by ship, and not every ship is allowed to take this. There has to be suppressant materials on board the ship. It has to be licensed, and if you think regular containers are expensive, you want to try a DG container. So naturally, Cccl would have been very disinclined to unnecessarily waste money, put it that way.
Yes, so they would bring in like 2 containers at a time, like
Yes.
full containers,
Exactly.
which were in the region of just under 40,000 kilos.
Well, of course it gets used. I don't know what the current state of it was, but you wouldn't need anything like that amount to create what happened.
And in your professional view, what are the specific risks of handling expired explosives?
Best not to do it.
But what in your view what are the risks? I know we
Yeah.
generally don't want to deal with expired stuff, but
No. Well, if they say there's nothing else, you have to make up your mind. The detonators we used to treat like little babies, frankly. It was like having your first child. You would be so careful. But I think that was a culture that wasn't really... I don't think that people understood the delicacy of that detonator.
yes.
But what I could say, we assumed the detonators would be okay for the day we were using them. As to the sweating, the exposure of the potent material from the main, I think the local name is banan, the sticks of dynamite, gelignite. If it was actually physically noticeable, we say, hey, no. If it was like just a slimy sort of feel, we'd go with it.
And how long have you been in the Seychelles?
I came here in late 74, early 75.
74.
75, yeah.
So a very long,
Yes.
long period. And what do you know about any of the training that's conducted in handling and dealing with explosives? Are you aware of any training that happens
I
here?
have no knowledge of that whatsoever, sorry.
No knowledge at all. And where do you obtain your blasting license from, or permit?
At the police station.
The Commissioner of Police,
Yes,
through the
yes.
Commissioner of
They're
Police?
very helpful.
Okay. And what does it take to get a blasting license?
Well, you have to have your original certificate. Usually we're renewing. There's a place for renewal for 4 or 5
yes.
years. So
But originally, if I wanted to, for instance, get a blasting permit, what would I need?
Well, you won't be able to do it now because it's not available to the general public anymore.
Oh, it's no longer available? Okay. But what was the criteria in the days you were getting it?
I'm not sure what, frankly, I came with an overseas license.
Oh, with the overseas, sure.
I'm not sure exactly what
do
the
locally.
locals did, but I'm sure they got some form of
Training.
training.
Okay. And you were mentioning about the way these explosives were being kept, that you felt they were unsafely kept.
I
Cccl.
tried continually. This is exactly what I wanted to say. I strongly recommend to the Commission that they look into providing an annual audit for the administrative supervision of the explosives and for the physical review of the storage facilities, because I don't think it's being taken seriously enough.
And you said you had raised your concern with the management at CCCL?
I did once. Obviously, I deferred to the magazine manager. You know, as I told you before, madam, whenever there was a new one, I'd say, hey, don't you think we could try and get a separate container for these debts and things? And then nothing happened. And
Just
then
ends there.
8 years later, I'd say the same thing.
It just ends there. Okay. Mr. Ruku, you have questions?
Good afternoon, Cap.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Rupu.
Captain Blau, l'étant va faire underwater blasting. Vous gagnez accompagné par un police escort.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely. Police were extremely helpful.
Whenever you go to do underwater blasting,
Yes.
are you accompanied by police escort?
Well, not under the water, but they're there on shore.
Jamais underwater qui un policier dans les cours ou out island.
They've never been underwater with you, the police.
They used to help me. They used to swim with me, but they were so helpful. We were short of people. They would carry things for me, carry the explosives, but they didn't do any diving, Mr. Ruku. They didn't dive under the water.
Ou pas imaginer ça va nous officier qui dans les.
You don't remember any of the officers that?
Well, of course I do. I
accompanied?
remember Eddie and Victor,
Eddie and
and Victorien.
Eddie and Victoria.
Yeah, Eddie Vell and Victorien.
What island was it?
Well, we've been all over North.
over.
We did the channel for North Island, Koi TV, a lot of work for Mahe work.
C'est correct pour moi dire pas derrière l'enfield qui basé avec bordage de l'eau salée. Si un flight path pour avion take off and landing,
Am I correct to say that behind the landfill, bordering the sea, land quoi?
flight path
Flight pack for
Aircraft.
aircraft,
and take off and landing.
takeoff and landing?
Yes, they pass that way.
Yes, they pass that way.
Si par coïncidence, explosion, si n'arrive à ce moment, il y a un danger pour avion qui peut take off and landing.
If by any coincidence
Yes.
the explosion happened when one of these aircraft was going by, would it have been a danger for?
There'd be a very small chance that some of the material would hit the aeroplane, but I think even if the aeroplane was passing, it would be unlikely. It's possible. I can't say it's impossible, but unlikely.
Après l'explosion, personne n'a eu d'expertise pour assister aux autres, vu qu'il y a une qualification.
After the explosion, nobody sought out your expertise in view that you were an expert. You were an expert in explosions.
You've hit a very difficult point, Mr. Ruku. The day after the explosion, as I've explained to the Commission, it was clear to me what had happened. I think somebody who took a basic 2-day course in explosives would have figured out that it was the deaths that went off, and then the main charges. The day after the explosion, I went down to the CID office and made a written statement, more or less exactly what I've told you today. I made a written statement to the CID officer, more or less covering what I've said now. And that's the last I heard of it. I felt it was my duty. I realized I was probably I wouldn't say the most experienced, but certainly one of the longest serving blasters. And I felt it was my duty to bring my knowledge to the police. And that's the last I heard of it.
It pas accepté offre ou dit.
Nobody contacted me. Later, I was surprised nobody contacted me. I went back to CID and they said they'd mislaid my statement. And that's why I was very, as I've said to the Commission now, my concern is for the future. And I was very disappointed that I wasn't contacted. I was very surprised. And of course, one doesn't want to force oneself on the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruku.
Mr. Ross, I've got a few questions for you. Regarding your concerns about the continued mismanagement of the magazine at CCCL, which concerns you've said you brought to the magazine manager's attention?
At the time?
At the time, yes.
The condition of the explosives.
Okay.
And also the time expired nature.
You've also specifically mentioned continued mismanagement of the magazine.
Yes.
Basically. To whose attention, apart from the magazine managers, did you bring your concerns? Anybody else higher up in management?
I went once to the manager of CCCL. They said they'd look into the matter.
Mm-hmm. You didn't hear anything?
Nothing further. Basically, it wasn't my problem, if you see.
Okay. CCCL was incorporated in 1991.
Right.
So you are alleging that even before the time that CCCL was incorporated,
yes.
Whichever entity was there,
yes, well,
and having a magazine was also mismanaged.
I'm not alleging, I'm confirming.
Confirming.
For sure, because it was PWD, but I think they took a little more care with the old stuff, frankly.
Okay.
And then I don't know when PWD changed. I'm not exactly sure of the time frame for that, but nothing changed in the operation.
Okay, but you were a customer then?
Yeah, I was a customer in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So.
Would you say that maybe the flaws or defects became more flagrant, more obvious to you?
No, it remained the same.
The same.
It just depended. You know, like if the explosive was fairly quickly used, we wouldn't have the problem. I'm not saying it was there continually.
Now, regarding the expired explosives, which you've said you purchased.
Yes. Well, we had no. It's either what they said was, yes, it's expired, but we don't have anything else.
Did you not have a choice to insist on having current?
Well, yes, of course, you just
ones.
don't take it.
Were the expired explosives being sold at a reduced price or at the normal market price?
We used to get a slight reduction, especially if we took it in bulk. As I was explaining to you, there's a slight difference with underwater. If the main charges are just sweating a little, they're really okay to use underwater. So we just, since there was no other choice, we went with it.
Okay. Would you say there was a market for expired explosives?
No.
Not really?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not, madam.
Absolutely not. Why did you not insist on the proper explosives being given to you, since you were paying at a slightly reduced price?
Sorry?
Why did you not insist on the proper explosives?
Well, there weren't any.
Oh, there weren't.
Let's say the ship wasn't coming for 6 months or something.
Okay, so that was in situations where there was no stock?
Yes, or not no stock, but there was no incoming stock.
Okay.
So it had time expired, but there was no incoming stock.
Okay.
So you had a choice not to use it at all.
Okay.
But it wasn't every time, I'll be honest with you. But sometimes it was really, really bad.
Yeah. Would you be able to say by which time frame the expired explosives had expired? Like 3 months expired, 6 months expired, a year?
Yeah, madam, it's an interesting question, because I was trying to explain when I went to see the manager of the company, I was trying to explain it's not a question of when the materials pitch up in Seychelles, it's when were they made. It might have been 5 years. The usual time frame is 8 to 10 years. So, you know, there's that factor as well. When was the stuff made? And I was never able to get any sensible answers out of that. There should have been records. There should have been records about this. But I was not given access to them.
What about on the product itself? Were you not able to
No, there's
discern?
nothing. It's
Thank you. That would be all, Mr. Plaus.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Plaus, is there anything else you wish to add?
No, thank you for allowing me my little comment at the beginning, and I'm at your service if there's any technical information required.
We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
We will resume at 2 p.m. for our next witness. Thank you.